Alright, it was December 12th, 1990 something. I just turned 17 years old and I was selling newspaper subscriptions in San Antonio. We're working in an apartment complex up 1,000 Oaks. Usually we work in pairs with this job, and my partner that day was James Mejia. James was 16 years old, but he looked like he was like 10, right? We each were, at this point it was like 8:45 at night. It was raining, December, cold, and none of us had sold shit, which means none of us had any money, right? Got paid for what we sold. Alright, I'm working one building, James working this other building. All of a sudden, James comes over to me and starts yanking my coattails. He's like, Greg, come on with me. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? He's like, come on. And I'm like, what? And he's like, come on. And then so I go with him, and he takes me to this car, right? There's this car. It's parked like in 2 parking spots. The lights are on in the car, beer cans all around the car, and there's apparently this leather object sitting in the passenger seat in the car. James and me are talking to each other, and we're trying to, convince each other to open up the car door and grab the leather item and run off, right? Finally, after like 10 minutes of standing by the car like idiots, I try to open the car, and I'm like, oh, it's fucking not even open, And then we're like, oh, and so we're about to walk off. As we're walking off, all of a sudden, the 2 owners of the car, which had apparently been watching us the whole time, come down. This one huge-ass cowboy guy gets me like in this chokehold. He's like, I got me one, like some like steer, like cowboy rodeo call or something. And I pass out. I wake up. I'm in the back of a fucking squad car with cuts all over my arms and shit. And I look out the window, and there's this cop dusting fingerprints on the car door handle that I just tried to open. Apparently, I'm being charged with theft from a vehicle. They find out that I'm 17. They're like, you're 17? You're going to adult jail. And then I'm like, oh, shit, So I end up getting charged with theft from a vehicle, which is a misdemeanor, right? Now, some of you may be asking, what? He didn't go to jail for 4 months for that? I was like, you're right. They'll put me on probation, right? They'll put anybody on probation for the first crime, especially if it's a misdemeanor, okay? So I'm on probation, right? I'm doing all my community service. I pay all my fines. Most importantly, I pass all my piss tests. Even though my crime wasn't drug-related, they still piss tested me every chance they got. So I couldn't smoke weed, right? But part of my probation stipulation was that I had to complete an interview with a drug counselor, right? Now this took place like during the midpoint of my 2-year probation, so I'd already like completed like a year of it, of the fucking government watch thing. And so I go to this fucking meeting with this lady, and she's like, oh, this is all confidential. I'm not going to tell any of this to the judge or any of this to to your probation officer. I'm like, okay. And she starts asking me all these personal questions about my drug use, and we end up getting in this argument about legalization of marijuana. I tell her that even though I hadn't smoked in over a year, all my friends still smoked, and I was planning on smoking again as soon as I got out of probation. She gets all pissed off, and she ends up telling my probation officer, telling the judge. They end up revoking my probation. I have to go back to the judge, and I go to see the judge. I'm like, I try to tell my case to him, I'm defending myself. I'm like, Your Honor, why are you going to send me to rehab when I haven't used any drugs in over a year? And and then the judge is like, oh, you have a point there, And so he sits me in the jury box while he does all the other cases, right? He can't make up his mind, so I'm sitting there in the jury box. I'm just thinking, oh man, this sucks, And I notice a picture on the judge's desk. It's a picture of him when he was in like Vietnam or something. So then I come up with an aha moment. I'm like, yeah, I'll just tell him I'm planning to join the military. Then he'll let me off, no problem, And so I go back up to him like, Your Honor, you gotta let me off for probation. I'm planning to join the military. It's like, oh, the military. Well, we do have this boot camp program, and normally it's just for felons, but since I'm a sponsor of it, and the local news just did a feature about it, I think maybe I can pull some strings, send you there.